Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good. We got a nice day.
Oh, it's such a nice day out. Oh my goodness.
You know what it almost feels like? It almost feels like mid to late April.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So yeah, if you hear birds chirping in the background, it's because we finally are able to open a window without dire consequences.
Yes, I do have the window open. I apologize, but I'm not that sorry because it's very nice out.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yes. It's been so unseasonably cold here in Michigan, and it's been rough.
Really, it's been about on par for Michigan, but we're still going to complain.
I feel like at least last year it wasn't this bad because my wife's birthday was a few days ago, and I feel like on previous years we haven't had to bundle up and
sure.
Like
maybe
shovel
like a chilly day here and there, but never like
right.
It's felt like still kind of winter, for a while. So, and this week's looking a little bit on the better side. Although I'm not holding my breath for like I feel like another snow is in the future.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, it probably will come at some point.
But we'll see.
Yeah, and also I worked overtime yesterday, and so basically I have today off, I have tomorrow off, but then tomorrow I've got basically my entire day booked up.
Yeah, Gabe's very busy.
Very, very busy.
Very busy.
I just last night I recorded, so like twice a month I do these little, I've been trying to do these little like patron updates where I record, usually just like 10 minutes of me saying like what's been going on in my life, what sort of media I've been consuming lately.
Sure.
And so I recorded one for this month a little bit late actually because of our power outage last week. And it was just like 20 minutes of me talking about how exhausted I am and how it's been so hard to have time to do anything because everything that's been going on the last few weeks. So anyway, if you want to hear me complain and not in the like funny let's hear about Gabe complaining about something D&D wise. No. This is the less exciting version of complaining.
The real life woes of Gabe.
Yeah. So if you would like to hear that, all you have to do is contribute $5 a month to our Patreon.
To give Gabe money so he has less to complain about.
I guess. Well, I mean, to be honest, the Patreon is kind of a little bit of the difficulty that's plaguing me right now, just because it's more stuff that I have to get done.
Sure.
I still haven't written my fantasy fiction for this month because I've been so busy, and that takes a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll have to try to squeeze it out in the next week, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah. So that aside, thank you all for bearing with us last week. We did not have a normal episode, but we did have a little bonus episode, which I mean actually was I think it was kind of a good episode.
Yeah. It went longer than we were expecting it to go, so that's good.
And even though I vocally was not going to be doing much, if any, editing on it, I still think it was pretty good. We were very candid on on a lot of stuff, and anyway, yeah. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us this week.
Yes,
and I guess we'll have a good episode for you. Woo. So Jeff, you want to go ahead and get into the episode?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, Jeff, guess what?
What's that?
You just found the Dragon's Hoard.
What? You know what? It's funny because I was looking for it all day yesterday, couldn't find it. It's just when you're not looking,
exactly,
that's when it shows up
when you least expect. So let me do that over. You just found the Dragon's Hoard. So today's Dragon's Hoard item was submitted by Collins via email, and the item he submitted is called Ironbark.
Morph?
Ironbark. Ironbark is a legendary melee weapon, requires attunement, and it goes as follows.
Wait, it's not a mechanized suit that a dog wears to become a superhero?
That now I really want to make a monster that is a dog, or a monster or a character that is a dog that wears a suit of armor.
A genius playboy philanthropist.
Yes.
A dog. Ironbark.
So the item description goes as follows. A century ago, High elves ventured into the Shadowfell and crafted a sword from a sacred tree as a gift to the newly crowned King of Halrua. In appearance, Ironbark is a black wooden sword with a leather-wrapped handguard, but is as durable as the strongest steel. Once attuned to this item, a word in an unknown tongue will appear on the blade that requires an hour of study by someone proficient in Arcana to decipher. Speaking this word causes the blade to burst forth a green flame, dealing extra d6 psychic damage on a hit, and may be used 4 times before the user takes a long rest. And I did clarify on this, so each time you say the word, each time you use a command word, you get 1 attack that can deal that damage. Cool. I thought it was going to be like a longer period of time, but it is once per, so basically 4 times, 4 attacks per day.
Sure.
You can use this. After the character the item is attuned to overcomes a major obstacle or has similarly worthy character progression determined by the DM, a second word will appear on the blade that requires the same process to decipher. Speaking this word causes the sword to burst forth a yellow flame, and on a hit, the flame leaves the sword and travels to the affected creature's mind. Ooh. The creature must make a wisdom saving throw equal to the user's spellcasting DC, or in the case of a non-spellcaster, 15. On a failure, the DM may roll on the short-term madness table on page 258 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. The creature is then under the rolled effect for 1d10 rounds or until cured by an effect such as Greater Restoration. This ability may be used twice before the user must take a long rest. I think this is a really cool item. It uses a few different mechanics. I like how it does specify the mechanics needed to identify the command word.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. A lot of the time, the command word is just kind of left up to the DM. Sometimes it's just ignored. I know in 3rd edition, like, that's what most people did. If you found a magic item that was command word based, most of the time, nobody even thought about how to figure out what the command word was.
Sure.
It's got rules on that.
Just like we identified it, we know the word now, right? Yeah, okay.
Exactly, yeah. And then I also really like how it progresses kind of as you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's just sort of it puts the idea in there, like idea in there for the DM to use to like to add a little bit of progression with the character and stuff like that. You know, it kind of leaves it up to the DM in that way, which is always good.
Yeah.
I like magic items that kind of give the player or the DM ideas for their character.
Yeah, that is really cool. Also, I really like the fact that it's a wooden sword.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's supernaturally strong,
right? Yeah.
But I really like that. I really like little non-mechanical effects like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, isn't there like a material
there is ironwood.
Ironwood.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose in campaigns where ironwood is a thing, this could very easily be ironwood.
Sure.
Maybe that's what he meant it to be to begin with, but it's not specified. But it doesn't really need to be. It's just it is wood. But it is strongest. It is as durable as the strongest steel.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. There was a campaign that Chris ran.
Dang.
A while back where we didn't play for very long, but with our characters, he told each of us that we were allowed to have like one sort of superior item that was kind of left up to us to determine what it was, but it had to be something that tied into our backstory. And my character was a fighter who was also, I think he was a fighter bard. We were just adult characters, so we all had 2 classes. So he was a fighter bard. And the idea, exactly. And so the idea was that a lot of his combat style was learned from stage fighting. And so I think I had my like item be that he had a sword, that it was a wooden stage, so like a wooden sword that you'd use on stage.
Yeah.
However, it was ironwood, so if he wanted to, he could actually use it. And then because it was a stage sword, he could use it to make non-lethal attacks in addition to lethal attacks.
Cool.
So anyway, I just thought that was a neat thing.
Yeah.
So I really, really like wooden swords. Mm-hmm. I like the mechanics where it grows with you. I really like having to learn the command word. Mm-hmm. And I love the short-term madness table. Yeah. Anything that has you roll on the madness table, it gets a thumbs up from me.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's a fun, crazy mechanic.
Yeah.
Maybe you could even further the growth of this weapon and like have it like a third command word that like awakens it as like this like intelligent item, but it's like it has some sort of madness or something. Ooh. I feel like because it's kind of got this theme of like psychic damage or something, like psychic, and then roll on the madness table, and then maybe like you awaken it, and it's like a crazy person.
You awaken it, and it just screams.
It just, yes.
Yeah, no, that's a cool idea.
A screaming sword. Oh my gosh, yes.
Here's an idea. It is intelligent and it is insane until it imparts that insanity on someone else.
Sure.
And then for that duration, it becomes sane.
He has to get the madness out of it.
Yes. Anyway, I was thinking that'd be really cool if you could combine the two abilities, because there's the green flame and then the yellow flame. Mm-hmm. If you could combine the two so that you have a green and a yellow flame at the same time. I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, in my head, that seems like it'd be really cool.
I wonder, well, because do you know how like command words activation work? Is that like a bonus action or
I
something?
Actually don't know. Back in 3rd edition, it was explicitly a standard action.
Yeah.
So like if something was command word related, you had to spend your action doing just the command word. I don't know if that's the case in this edition.
Yeah.
That's a good question, though. I'll try to find out.
If it's just literally saying a word, which could be what was like kind of a free action.
I guess, yeah.
I guess. So like maybe you could say both words and do both things at the same time.
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly. It depends on how command words work in 5th edition.
Yeah. I'll have to. I'll look into that, because I feel like that's something that would be important to know. Mm-hmm. All right. So yeah. It's not super complex of an item, but I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I think
it's got good theming. I like it.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's something that has really come forth in this, is that I love magic items with really strong theming. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Man, do you remember that one magic item we got a long time ago where like you could like cough out a bunch of bees?
I vaguely remember that, but yes.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. That was an RPG Superstar item. So
bees.
Yeah. So that was made by somebody who was like trying to get a career in
sure
making magic items, essentially. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for the Dragon's Hoard today.
Okay.
If anybody wanted to submit magic items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the Funeral Pyre, or questions for us to discuss, how would they do so?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Yes. Now, before we go any further, we have a giveaway today. So this is unexpected, but the winner is Collins.
Woo!
Today.
Whoa, winner.
Gobble, gobble, gobble. So congratulations, Collins. Collins B.
Yes.
You should be getting an email within the next day or so from Benoit at Goblinstone. Mm-hmm. So if you have any thoughts about the adventure, if you like it, if you don't like it, please let them know. And if you don't get your email within the next day or so, let me know. I always get a copy and I'll forward it on to you. Or just check your spam filter. It's probably wound up in there.
It's probably sitting in there somewhere.
Yes. So thank you, Collins, for that submission. If somebody wanted to submit themselves into our drawing, Jeff, how would they do that?
They just send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with the subject line, Chapel on the Cliffs.
Yes. Awesome.
And the contents of the email can be anything you want.
Yes, it can be. You could give us some kind words. We've actually gotten some emails with some kind words.
Yeah,
you guys are awesome.
Yeah,
thank you all so much. We've got it's not super often because we don't have a ton of listeners.
Right. But the ones that we do get we appreciate very much.
Yes,
the kind
absolutely. Words. So yeah, thank you all for listening. I think I even said that earlier, but it blows me away how many people are willing to give us an hour of their week.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I understand how valuable an hour of a week can be. So Chapel on the Cliffs on the subject line. Send us an email if you want to be entered, and it's that easy. Mm-hmm. We'll do a drawing every week. So just one more thing. Check out, actually two more things. I always forget that there's two things here. Check out our friends over at Crit Academy, critacademy.com. They have their own podcast, which is a great, great podcast. A lot of our listeners came from them, actually.
Yeah.
Because they talk about us all the time too. Mm-hmm. So check them out. They have produced new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. Every episode, they make a character concept, a monster variant, an encounter concept, a magic item, a player tip, and a DM tip. And I've actually been compiling those into a big thing that we're going to try to release as a book that you can buy.
Cool.
So they're really cool. Check them out. After them, D&D Character Lab is another great podcast.
Yes.
They make characters and pit them against each other. Who doesn't like making characters?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, check them out. They are at dndcharacterlab.blogspot.com. All right, and also check out our Patreon, patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. We've got some great rewards. Like I said, if you want to listen to me complain about stuff in a less entertaining way, that is one thing you can get. But also every month we have a patron-only bonus episode. Mm-hmm. Every month I write a fantasy fiction that all of our patrons, no matter how much they donate, all of our patrons can read. But also, if you are one of our highest level patrons, you can submit a character concept to me and I will write it about your character.
Yeah.
So I've got a little bit of a backlog on that, but pretty soon we'll be finished, and I'll be free up, and I'll probably start writing about some of my own characters. Maybe I'll get some more characters from our patrons.
Cool.
But yeah, so check that out. See if the rewards appeal to you. Anything you can give us would be great. It would go towards making the show better. And hey, if you can't donate anything, that's fine. Just the fact that you're listening is great. If you want to tell a friend, that would be even better.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Enough of that. You want to get into the episode?
Yeah, let's get going.
Cool.
All right. Our first question comes from Gerald the Sorceress. Gerald the Sorceress. This was on Reddit, and they ask, in your opinion, what is the GM's job and why?
Yeah, this one, it took me a little while to try and think about. I think that it's going to differ depending on the game. So,
Sure.
I mean, it's going to differ depending on whether you are talking about a DM, so like a Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master,
Sure,
or a GM for, there's a lot of different games that have a game master that fulfill different roles. I would have to say, I mean, coming from a D&D background, which I think is what most of our listeners play.
Yeah. In
D&D, I would say, it's hard to really kind of define it without also like quantifying what I mean by that. So here's what I mean. I would say in Dungeons and Dragons, the DM's job is to facilitate a story for the players. I'm a bit hesitant to say just that though, because that makes it feel like the DM is the player's servant or something.
Yeah.
Or like they don't get to take part in the fun. I would say as a catch-all for every kind of person running a game, I would say it is the DM's job, the GM's job, the keeper's job, whatever you're calling them. It is their job to keep the game running smoothly and make sure everybody has a good time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They are sort of like the referee and they're sort of like there to like kind of make sure everybody gets a turn sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Like that's I think one of the more important things I think that is a GM's job is to make sure that like everybody gets their fair share of, participation.
Yeah.
And to sort of gauge whether or not, we've talked about like, spotlight hogs and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I don't know, that's definitely one important thing that a GM should be doing.
Yeah, I mean I feel like just that answer though is very much missing a lot of what a DM also has to do.
Yeah.
Because again, in something like D&D, the DM has to do a lot more than that. A lot of the time the DM is also the one that is coming up with all of the story.
Right.
Different games involve the players in different amounts. And of course, in D&D, you can play a D&D game where the players are doing half the work coming up with the story too. But I don't think that's the norm. I think that most groups don't do that. Mm-hmm. Most of the time in D&D, it is the DM's job to make up a story or to find a story and then not only be the referee and make sure everybody gets their fair share, but also be the one that is setting the tone, creating the environment, and moving the story along. Mm-hmm. In a perfect world, I think the players would move the story along more than anything else.
Right, yeah.
But that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that sometimes is a lot to ask of players. I mean, like that is what's needed, but it sometimes some groups of players aren't as, I don't know. Players get distracted very easily.
Yeah. It's hard to really quantify exactly what the DM is supposed to do.
Yeah, this is a very big question.
It is. It is.
And like they say specifically GM, so it does include pretty much any game that involves someone who is sort of like at the helm.
Yeah. Because I know in a lot of other games, like for example, my brother's game, The Mountain Witch, mm-hmm. Which actually I just spoke with my brother the other day for the first time in a while, and he's not The second edition of the Mountain Witch is not out yet, but in a couple months, he's going to be doing a Kickstarter for it. And so he's having people do play tests of it at the moment. I actually am going to see if we have time in the next month or two, if we can do one of those play tests, Jeff. So if there's, I've gotten in touch with Justin from Crit Academy. Maybe we can try to get together with him or something. And maybe his friends Ian and Brandon. We'll see. Anyway, in the Mountain Witch, there is a lot more emphasis on the players narrating stuff as well. So there will be things where the DM, or the GM rather, just says like, okay, you guys walk into a chamber in this mountain cave. Hey, player one, what do you see? And then the player says, oh, I see this, and so on. And then maybe player two will then take that and bounce off that and come up with something additional. And there are, if the second edition is anything like the first edition, players have like sort of hidden parts of their backstory that even the GM isn't supposed to know. Okay. But the GM is also supposed to be able to, like when a player hints at something in their backstory, the GM has to be able to recognize it and then play off it in such a way to help them out, even though the GM doesn't necessarily know what it is. Sure. I guess let me explain that in a little more depth. In the Mountain Witch, in first edition at least, you had each player was dealt out randomly a dark fate at the beginning of the session. Okay. So you might have there might be one where, so this is an ulterior motive that your character has for going on this quest, in addition to just being hired or whatever to go kill the Mountain Witch. You might have revenge, and what that means is that one of the other players in the group has wronged you, and you are also seeking to take revenge on that player. Mm-hmm. One of the other dark fates is like Dark Pact, and that means you have made a deal with the Mountain Witch at a previous time, and you are there to basically deliver your end of the deal, whatever that is, and then the Mountain Witch will keep up his end of the deal as well. So that is something the player is supposed to come up with on their own time. There isn't necessarily supposed to be a time where they say to the GM, hey, here's the dark fate I have. This is what my thing is. In fact, the GM isn't supposed to know what your dark fate is until you choose to reveal it. Right. So the player has to narrate what they are doing in accordance with their dark pact in such a way that they don't just spell it out to everybody. And at the same time, the GM has to be able to take what they're saying, interpret it to be one of the dark fates, and then kind of throw it back at them in such a way that then they can play off it. So in that regard, there is more to the GM's job than just, the GM isn't necessarily creating the world. They're doing a little bit of the creating of the world. Yeah. But actually running the game is largely up to the players. The players are in charge of a lot of the narration. So in that case, the GM's job is it is to keep the game running smoothly. I think that is primarily what the GM does in that case. But also it is to wrap up the story, I think. It is to facilitate the framework of the story. Yeah. I was hoping that we could come up with some sort of like a quick and easy, like, oh, here's 10 words and that explains what a GM's job.
No, yeah,
but
that's no.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, they're GM is a lot of things. They have a lot on their plate. Yeah. It's not, more in some games than others. But yeah, for the most part, they're just kind of there to corral everybody.
I guess,
to shepherd the kittens.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's having a good time. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that's probably the best answer we can give, is that it is their job to facilitate the game, to keep the game moving, and to make sure, keep everybody focused. Yeah. That does kind of make it sound like a thankless job. It does kind of make it sound like a job that isn't fun.
But it can be a lot of fun.
It can be. And I think that the extra little parts to the job that are going to differ from game to game, those are really what's going to make the game enjoyable. If you're a DM that really enjoys making up a story and narrating a lot of stuff, you're probably going to have less fun with a game like the Mountain Witch than you would with D&D. That being said, if you are the kind of DM that doesn't like having to stick to rules or even coming up with rules, D&D probably might not be the game for you. I know lots of people do run D&D in a much more loose rules way, but I think that for a person like that, I think a game where there's less of a rule set to begin with would be a little bit better. Like the game we played, the Terrible RPG. Yeah. That I think that would be great for somebody who doesn't like having to stick to the rules because there's so few rules. It is all about, we have a fun story. If you want to do something, you can do it as long as you can do this relatively simple mechanic to make it happen.
Right. Yeah. It's very simple. And then you just kind of run with it. It's great. That was fun.
I can't remember when we ran that game in relation to the podcast, but if we didn't, I know I mentioned that I ran a game at Shootokan with Justin from Crit Academy and some other, and also one of our other patrons, Jom, was there as well. I know I mentioned a game that I ran there, but I also ran a game for you, for our friend Steve, for our patron Justin, not from Crit Academy Justin, but this other Justin. And so we ran a game of the Terrible RPG there. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was the same story. It was an 80s slasher that took place in a summer camp.
Right, yeah.
But I think
counselors.
I think that went really well. Both games were unique in their own ways. I kind of had them both. Well, actually, no. I was going to say I had them both end the same way, but I totally didn't. Because in that game, you came up with a way that completely swept my ending that I had planned out from under me, and instead ended like a quintessential 80s movie.
Sure, yeah. The montage and everything.
Yes. So there was this killer after them. I won't really get into any details, but they got to the final confrontation with the killer, and then you basically tore part of your sheet off, and you're like, okay, my dad's a lawyer. He'll get you a great settlement, and you don't have to kill people anymore.
Right, yeah.
And then there was a montage of him getting rehabilitated, and then it was a happy ending for everybody.
Obviously, it was a workplace accident that caused the problem.
It was.
So he was entitled to some sort of he had disabilities and tragic stuff happened to him.
That was not at all how I expected that to go. But then I asked if I could do but it could have happened this way, and then run the ending that I had planned. Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, so that's a great game. The Terrible RPG. I recommend everybody try it out. It's so simple. Anyway, yeah, I think we've given the best answer we can give for that question.
At least in the short amount of time.
Right.
Our next question comes from Machen M.
There you go.
This was on Reddit. And what, in your opinion, is the single most important quality for a GM?
Yeah. So for this, flexibility, I think.
Sure.
I think overall flexibility is the biggest, most important quality that I can say. Regardless of what game you're playing, if you plan something out, it's not going to go according to plan. But if you are flexible, you're able to take what you did plan and then sort of work it into what the players want to do. We've said in the past that I've said a somewhat controversial statement, and that is that it is impossible to run a game without any railroading, whether that's true or not. I think that the best way to railroad is by taking the content you have created, that you have prepared, and then just working that into whatever it is the players want to do.
Right.
So that you can still prepare, but when the players go off the rails, they've still got something waiting for them because you did still have something prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a fork in the road and the players can go left and right, you planned out what was to the right, you didn't plan out what was to the left, and they say they want to go to the left. Okay. What they find to the left is what you had planned to be on the right.
Right, yeah. You just mirror it or something like that. The only problem I feel that comes up is if they go to the left, you show them what's on the left, and then they don't like it, and then they go to the right, and you're like, it's the same.
Well, and again, that's where flexibility comes into play, because then you can be like, you could say, yeah, you get there and there's a dead end.
It's just like
something.
The same NPC but with a mustache.
Or they get to the other way and it is an exact copy of what they just saw.
Yeah.
But like everything is like slightly off.
Yeah. Everybody has a mustache.
I guess. Yeah. Everybody has a mustache. So yeah, flexibility I think is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of other things. Positivity I think is a really good one too.
Yeah.
Because if a player says they want to do something and your reaction is, okay.
Right.
That's one thing. But if instead you're like, yes,
right, yeah,
that happens, let's find a way to make it cool.
Right.
That is like a world of difference.
Exactly. Like if a player expresses interest in a thing, run with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one is energy, very similar to positivity. If you're describing a scenario to the players, and you're just like, okay, yeah, you guys see there's a castle. You walk up to the castle, and there's a giant, and he asks what you're doing here.
He's wearing shoes.
They're really big shoes.
Yeah, because he's a giant.
That's one thing. But if instead, because here's something that I really want to give Justin from Crit Academy credit for. I've listened to. They have an episode that is them playing a game. We played in a game that he ran.
Yeah.
I went to Shootokan. I saw them do their thing, which was basically him running a game in front of an audience.
Sure.
And he is 100% energy from beginning to end.
Yeah, that boy's full of energy.
Yes, he is constantly saying like, okay, so you see this giant, and then you see that he's got his club has blood and bones like wedged into it, and you realize that those are human bones, and you realize that this is the giant that killed those people in town last week or whatever. So
he's got shoes. He's big shoes because he's a giant. He's huge. The shoes are made of the skin of the innocents.
Yes. And so that is something that is really, really important, because the more energy you have, the more energy the players are going to have. I think that a lot of players are going to naturally try to mirror, especially if they are not the strongest players on their own. Most of them are going to try to mirror the other players around them and the DM as well. So if you have more energy, the players are going to have more energy. The people that have less experience are going to feel more at ease.
Right.
We've talked in the past about doing funny voices, and I think on our horror episode, we talked about if you're going to do like a voice that's supposed to be scary or something, you 100% have to commit.
Yeah.
You can't half-ass it. You have to give it as much as you can, because if you think it sounds stupid, the players are going to think it sounds even more stupid.
Sure.
So any kind of voices, you have to give that as much energy as you can, because if you don't give it all the energy, it's gonna end up sounding kind of dumb.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, with voices and stuff, you could do, you know, some people like they have like 2 or 3 voices they can do, and like I guess that's probably fine. But keep in mind that it also gets confusing.
It can, yeah.
Like characters get tied together. You know, like people get characters confused with other characters.
Yeah.
I almost feel like when it's like when a book is being turned into a movie or something like that, they like fuse characters together.
Yeah, always.
I feel like that can sometimes happen in a D&D game where like you get 2 characters confused, and then you're just like, you know what, this is just the same person. They serve the same purpose. It's one person. They did the fusion dance. It's fine. Sure.
Wasn't there an episode of Family Guy where Peter's father-in-law met their doctor, and the 2 of them commented how they both sound exactly the same?
Right, because Seth uses the exact same voice for both of them.
I feel like I wish we would get a question about character voices, because I would love to talk about character voices, what I think makes them good, what makes them bad, and so on. But again, it's all about energy. The more energy you have, the more acceptable a character voice is going to be.
There is something to say about too much energy.
True.
Because too much energy, you become towards like the spotlight, like, you know, you kind of stop, you know, you steal the show sort of thing, where
kind of,
if someone who is lower energy, if you get a little bit high, if you have higher energy, that might boost them, and they might participate a little bit more often than they would.
Yeah.
But someone who is low energy and your energy is too high, you know, that might have the reverse effect.
It might kind of overshadow them, and then
they kind of go into their shell even more.
Yeah.
So, you know, energy, but not too much energy.
Sure.
Don't go over the top.
Like I just one more thing about energy. I feel like I've listened to a few actual play podcasts. In general, I don't really like them. There's a couple that I do like, but most of them, especially the first few that I ever listened to, what really turned me off to them was just how slow and low energy everyone was.
Right, yeah.
And it just made me feel like, if you're not excited about this game, why should I be excited about this game? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I really like about the McElroy brothers with the Adventure Zone. They are comfortable talking to each other because they've been doing basically radio for like 8 years. Radio comedy in particular. And so they are very comfortable talking to each other, and so they have all this energy, and they're very comfortable bringing that energy out. They know how much energy the others are going to be able to play off of, and they build each other up. They they bounce off each other. So I think their level of energy is very good, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. So yeah, energy is a definitely a good quality. Consistency is a pretty good quality too, but it depending on how you run your game, you don't necessarily have to be 100% consistent with everything.
Right.
As long as you're fair. Fairness, I think, is probably a better way to put that. Mm-hmm. So like try not to give one player too much attention. If one player is taking more attention, do what you can to bring out the less energetic players some more. You don't ever want someone to feel like you made a bad call. And, it's going to happen from time to time. While we're talking about... Sorry, if you had something about that.
Humility?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, like, you have a lot of pressure on you.
Definitely.
And, like, some, people are going to call you out on things if you're not being fair. And you might not be, doing it on purpose and stuff mm-hmm. like that. But people are going to call you out on things, or, there might be some confrontation. Being able to just sort of like take that and be like, okay, we'll work on it and kind of move on from there. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like, or like, being able to have understanding, be, somewhat empathetic and I don't know, just be nice.
Yeah. So I think like let's say you are concerned about making rulings as a DM or whatever. You want to be fair, so you want to make sure that your ruling is something that isn't just going to needlessly screw over a player. But I also think that you should have a bit of a backbone.
Sure.
This is coming from someone who does not have much of a backbone, so take this with a grain of salt. But if you make a ruling and a player doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. Of course, players don't bring this up at the table, don't start a fight at the table. But if a player brings up a concern, listen to their concern, consider it. I'm not saying you should immediately shut it down. I'm not saying you should immediately let them do whatever they want. But listen to what they say, consider it. If you still want your ruling, stick to your ruling and don't let the player try to bully you any further.
Right.
If they need to, they can talk to you after the game. But once you've made a ruling, stick to it. If you are constantly giving in after a player offers, the smallest objection, that's not a good quality for a DM. Whether they mean to or not, players are going to take advantage of that, and they're going to do something. They're going to take something that you rule, and they're going to say, "No, we should do it this way." And then before you know it, they're running the game instead of you. Mm-hmm. So you should be fair and you should be understanding, but at the same time, you should stick to what you believe.
Yeah.
Stick to what you want, what kind of a game you want to run. Mm-hmm. So try to be in control of the table. That's not the most important by any means. Like I said, I am self-proclaimed a wuss a lot. That being said, I know what I like. I know what my values are. Mm-hmm. So I will try as much as I can to stick to what I've ruled. If someone provides even a slightly good argument as to why a ruling might not be great, I might try it out. I might try out what that player does, but I'm not just gonna like, you don't like that? Okay, fine, we'll do whatever. Right. I do have my own values, and I'm very outspoken about those values at times. So yeah, so there's a lot of different qualities that are important for a DM, for a DM or a GM. And I think most of them are pretty system agnostic. I think that a lot of them apply to pretty much any kind of game that you're playing.
Yeah. All right. Our next question comes from Craig Hudson. This was on email. Do you have any advice on how to plan a murder mystery adventure? Also, should I let the players know if they arrest or kill the wrong person?
Yeah. So I love murder mysteries.
Yeah.
I think they're awesome. In pretty much any kind of genre, any kind of medium. I love me a good murder mystery. Clue is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's so much fun. However, in general, I think it is very hard to run a murder mystery in a game like D&D. The reason that movies and books and such work is because every character is being created by the same person.
Yeah.
So if there is a point in the story where a single character could ask a specific question that would unravel the whole thing, then the writer can easily avoid that by just not having them do it.
Right, yeah.
Whereas if you're doing a murder mystery game and one of the players has that idea, you have to have a way. You either have to let them unravel the adventure, the mystery early on, or you have to have a reason why it won't work. So I feel like you have to be very, very prepared and have a lot of ways to avoid situations like that. One thing that I think is very important for any murder mystery, whether it is a book, a game, or whatever, is red herrings. A good red herring is so good in a murder mystery. When you think the entire time that it is this one character, and then it turns out, oh, no, that other character, the reason that he was acting all shifty was because of this other reason that exonerates him and everything. Right. It's like, no, he couldn't have committed that murder because he was in the other room sabotaging the thing so that it would break once after he had sold it or something like that. Right. Whatever. If you can give someone a reason that they are a suspect, but then a reason why they don't just explain why they're not a suspect. That's a really good thing in a murder mystery.
There's a cartoon show. I can't remember which one it is, but there is a character named Red Herring.
That would be a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Really?
It was the Scooby-Doo that was...
Is that really what it's from?
It is.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yes, it is.
It would be young Freddy.
Young Freddy, exactly.
It would be like, it was Red Herring, and then the Red Herring would come and was like, no, it wasn't me, because I was doing this other thing. And they'd be
exactly.
Dang it, I thought it was him.
Except there was one episode where it was Red Herring.
Wow, that was... I completely forgot that show existed. For some reason I was picturing the characters from Recess.
I mean, similar kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
So for anybody who is not familiar, there was the Scooby-Doo cartoon, which I imagine probably everybody has heard of at least.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody knows in some way or another the cartoon show Scooby-Doo.
Yes. And then in the early 90s, I want to say, they made a sort of like a newer, younger version of Scooby-Doo where all of the characters were little kids. They were younger versions of themselves.
Yeah.
So instead of being teenagers or young adults, they were all middle school kids.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot goofier, I guess. It was also, it wasn't made in the 60s or whenever the heck the Scooby-Doo show was made. But it was the art style was a lot more like cartoony. And everything was younger. And it was aimed at a younger audience, but it was also just a lot more modern. And so they poked fun at
red herrings.
At red herrings, I guess. Yeah. So So when you're planning a murder mystery adventure, you want to make sure that there are lots of suspects that all seem equally viable. Mm-hmm. You also want to make sure the actual suspect has enough reasons that the actual killer, you want to make sure they have enough reasons why they wouldn't seem like they are the killer. In fact, Craig Hudson, when he sent me he sent me an email and he wrote out, because he was going to be planning out a murder mystery adventure, and he wrote out to me what he ended up doing, and it was actually really cool. While reading his story, the whole time when he got to the person that turned out to be behind it, I did not see that coming at all, and so it seemed like he did have plenty of red herrings and plenty of false leads that would lead his players to suspect the wrong person. Now, the problem with that, especially in a game like D&D, where players do have the ability to go and kill people if they think that they are, if they think they deserve it.
Right. Yeah. They usually have the ability to do so.
Yeah. Then, his question is, should I let the players know if they arrest or kill the wrong person? Absolutely. If the players kill the wrong person, you should make sure that they feel the guilt over that.
Right. Not necessarily come out and say oh, that was the wrong person, but have there be consequences.
Yes, definitely.
I'd say don't spoil it, but let it come out naturally. They're oh no, have another murder happen. You're shoot.
Yeah. Even if it's just a matter of them arresting somebody, if they arrest the quote unquote the killer, and then the next day there's another murder. Oh, well, then then why did we put him in prison? So yeah, you definitely should. How you're going to do it, that's up to you, but try to work it into the story.
Yeah.
If they even wrongly accuse somebody, that should change how that character interacts with them or how other characters interact with them, because then they're starting to think that, oh, well, these adventurers, they're just eager to to crucify somebody. You know, they're not actually looking for the killer. They're just looking for a scapegoat.
Yeah.
So maybe people even start suspecting them.
Uh-oh.
If they go around pointing the finger at everybody but themselves.
They have magic swords. It must be them.
Exactly. They've got magic spells. That's another thing. Why a murder mystery adventure is going to be especially hard in a game like D&D. Divination, exactly. So you have to have some reason why it doesn't work.
Right, yeah, which, like, you know, there are counter spells to divination.
Yeah.
Like counterspell.
And exactly. And I've said in the past something along the lines of, like, if your encounter is ruined by a single dice roll or a single spell, it probably wasn't a very good adventure.
Sure.
That's the thing about murder mystery adventures. They pretty much exist in the real world because we don't have magic. They existed best back before there were cell phones and cameras and whatnot. Yeah. So
it's like, why don't they just call somebody?
Exactly. So every murder mystery nowadays has to have some reason why those modern conveniences just don't work.
Right.
And you could say that means that they're not well written. I'd say there probably are murder mysteries that are well written that still work even with the existence of cameras and phones and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be writing one in D&D, you have to take that into account. Yeah. You either have to come up with a reason why divinations don't work, or you have to come up with a murder mystery that still works even with divinations.
I feel like a murder mystery adventure would be easier to do low level than high level.
Absolutely.
The less that the players can do, the more that the less that the characters can do, the more that the players have to do.
Sure.
To try and solve it. I feel like I was like thinking like, okay, it'd be like maybe you could do it like in an anti-magic bubble sort of thing.
I suppose.
But then there's still characters who use non-magic things, so they'll have the advantage in certain things. It's like, all right, so lower levels where you have less to deal with.
Yeah.
But maybe like a murder mystery, but it's like ghosts.
Okay.
so everyone.
So a ghost got killed?
Well, maybe.
maybe.
Like where all the characters involved are ghosts. So like the players can't necessarily just like kill them. Like they can't solve. They can't really do anything other than solve it.
Yeah.
So because they can't interact directly with the with the subjects.
Sure.
Or suspects.
There is a movie. I don't think this is a spoiler because I think it's the basic premise of the movie. There's a movie called The Frighteners.
Spoiler. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It was made by Peter Jackson. I think.
Spoiler. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Has Michael J. Fox in it.
Oh, I knew that.
But I believe the premise of this movie, Michael J. Fox can see he can see and speak to ghosts.
I do know this movie.
And he like
it's the one with the numbers.
Yes. Yeah. He's like a paranormal investigator, except the trick is that he knows the ghosts that are doing all of these ghost things. Uh-huh. So he just says to them, "Hey, go haunt that house, and then I will offer to, quote unquote, exorcise you guys if they pay me." And then they pay him a bunch of money, so his ghost friends leave.
Right.
But then people start dying, and it's ghosts. It seems like ghosts are what is killing people, and he's the only one that realizes it because these people are just dropping dead.
Yeah.
But he realizes that every time it happens, he sees a number show up somewhere on the person's body right before they die.
Right.
And nobody else can see it, so it has to do with ghosts, and then he has to try and figure out what is causing this, how it is related to ghosts or whatever.
Yeah.
I won't spoil what actually ends up being the thing, but that just, you could maybe watch that movie as kind of an idea of how to do a murder mystery involving ghosts.
Sure.
If you are looking for a good example of a murder mystery in a D&D type setting, I would say we already talked about the Adventure Zone. Go check out the Adventure Zone. When they were first starting out, before the show got really plot heavy, in fact, the people that don't like it when it became plot heavy, they refer to this story arc as like the last good story arc.
Uh-huh.
It was their second main story arc, so it's pretty early on. They were around level 5, I want to say, so relatively low level.
Yep.
They did a murder mystery on a train.
Okay.
It was called the Murder Aboard the Rockport Limited.
Okay.
And so the whole thing was that there was this very powerful artifact that's being transported from one city to another city. The people that the characters worked for, they had reason to believe that it was going to be stolen from this train. Mm-hmm. So they needed the 3 main characters to go on this train, keep an eye on it, make sure that it does not fall into the wrong hands. And then while they're there, somebody turns up murdered, and they have to figure out who did the murder, and then is this murderer going to try? Obviously, the murderer is probably trying to get that item,
right.
So they have to figure out how to stop it before the murderer gets it. So it was
a murder.
Yes, it was a very, very fun story. There is a lot of poking fun at tropes. There's a lot of red herrings. There is a little bit of dealing with magic in a murder mystery.
Yeah, like I kind of like the idea of like forensic magic, but again, like the higher in levels you get, the more it's just sort of like
it becomes less fun to do realistic scenarios the higher level you get, just because it's like, I cast divination and I literally speak to my god and ask them what happened.
Yeah, I feel like there is something. Like, there's usually some sort of like notes and stuff in like divination spells that it's like up to DM discretion sort of thing.
Sure. And divinations can always be wrong. Like I'm pretty sure every one of them has a chance of giving incorrect information.
Right. Or you give like, or lower level ones usually give more like cryptic information, that sort of thing. And then there's always ways to defend against divination, and I don't know, like I think divination is one of those spell schools that like it's either like, depending on your campaign and the adventures and stuff, it's either just completely useless or like the one thing that can solve the problem.
Sure.
So I feel like that's something that you need to get creative with.
Yeah.
And especially if you're trying to do something like a murder mystery, if you do have a spellcaster that does have divination spells, like maybe try to prepare for those.
Sure.
Definitely prepare for those.
That's a really good point. Especially depending on what classes the characters are, if it's something like a sorcerer or a wizard, you have a pretty good, easy way to find out what spells they have access to.
Yeah.
And you can plan out for those specific spells.
Right.
Someone like a cleric or a druid, they're going to have a bigger spell pool. So it is possible to just look at look at the player's handbook or whatever books you allow and try to do it. But that's going to be a lot more work to try and account for all of these spells.
Yeah.
But yeah, having like a list of specific spells you think might be a problem, and then right next to it, how you think you should deal with it. That's a good idea. With a murder mystery, you should probably plan out a few possible ways that players might figure out the answer.
Yeah.
The players are probably not going to stick to any of those, so be flexible.
Right.
We did mention that earlier, but you should have several. There should never just be one solution. And at the same time, if the players do something you didn't plan for, you should always find a way to don't just shut them down. Maybe if you honestly don't know how to deal with something they did, let them do it, but have it lead to a red herring.
Sure.
Depending on what it is, maybe. You don't ever want a player to feel like they are, like their idea is worthless. That's not just murder mystery. That should be for all the time, but
right, yeah. Like
especially,
if it's a legitimately good idea, try to reward them as best as possible without just giving it all up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you mostly just go down the list and find all the obvious ones. It's like, no, I'm just going to use divination or whatever. Like,
sure.
There are going to be, depending on the characters, there are going to be some like really obvious answers.
And here's this is going to be very hard advice to take, but if you're running something like a murder mystery that is like so specific to, you want things to happen a certain way, if you get a quarter of the way through the mystery and then one of the players is like, oh, I'm going to do this thing, and it means that I know the answer immediately. If there's no way that you can easily come up with a way to get around it, they figured it out.
Yeah.
If you have to end it that early, I would say it is better to let a player, quote unquote, ruin a mystery early than to just arbitrarily say, no, it doesn't work and stick to your guns. It's going to suck. Yeah. It's going to be in the moment. It's going to be very hard to take that advice, but if it happens, try to just let it happen and then find a way to make the best of it. Because I think that will be the thing that everybody remembers positively. When they're like, hey, remember that time we were doing that murder mystery and you completely destroyed the mystery immediately? Everyone is going to have a good laugh about that.
Sure.
Whereas if you just arbitrarily insist it doesn't work, someone is going to be on a podcast talking about their worst DM, and they're going to be like, yeah, I had this thing. There's no reason it shouldn't have worked. And this DM insisted that it didn't work for no good reason.
He's like, nope, doesn't work.
Exactly.
You try to cast it, the spell doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
And like to this day, I'm afraid that people that I've DM'd for are saying that about me, because when I was starting out DMing, I was very bad about that. If I hadn't planned for it, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like I cast Magic Missile, it worked. I cast this other spell, it didn't work.
Exactly. Like there was a time when you weren't in the group at the time, but with Jay and Steve, there was a time that they were like attacked by some guy that was hired by the big bad to kill them or whatever. And rather than kill the attacker, they like tied him up and asked him, and they asked him who hired him, just who hired him to kill us. And he would rather die than give out a piece of information about the person that hired them to kill him.
Right.
And I mean, I guess if I had built up this bad guy as being like the kind of person that is all about fate's worse than death, that would have been one thing. But no, it was just some guy that hired this other random guy. Yeah. Like, oh no, go ahead and kill me. That's the only way that you're going to get any, you're not going to get any information out of me unless you kill me. This is the only way
this ends. Like, it's like, he's not like loyal to this guy to the end sort of thing. It's more just a one chump paying another chump.
Right.
Well, in the grand scheme. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, if you can't find a way around it and the players do something that completely ruins the adventure, let them do it. And the players will remember that fondly. So try not to stress out about it too much. Anyway, well, I think that'll do it for questions for today.
Yep.
So I guess before we close out, though, let's kick back. Let's take a deep breath.
It's fresh air from the open window.
It is some fresh air and some fresh noises from cars going by.
That'll be fun.
And let's toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Hang on a minute. Guess who our funeral pyre story is from?
Uh-oh. This is Colin's episode.
Yes. So, okay. This was entirely not intentional. I promise none of this was intentional.
This is all coincidental.
But our funeral pyre story today is also from Colin's. I have different folders in my email for show submissions for the Chapel on the Cliffs candidates. And I didn't even realize that I had brought up the next funeral pyre that was submitted is from Colin's.
Yeah. So
I guess this is the Collins episode. Right, Hey Collins. So this story is from Collins via email. And the story goes, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, so I'll do my best. Regime Straggler, the disgraced former leader of Halrua, was fighting a losing battle. Jungle City, a refugee village located in the Black Jungles, was the only settlement left on the Chult Peninsula that wasn't under control of the Shar Empire. Until today. 7 massive airships loomed on the horizon as our party began evacuating the 600-some citizens through the tunnels and out a portal made by our rogue to Waterdeep. When the Shar arrived, the ethereal voice of Emperor Dugard spoke in our minds, giving an ultimatum. To hand over Regime, or the city would fall. We sent our druid, Bob...
Okay.
The druid Bob. I just think that's a great name for a druid. We sent our druid Bob in disguise as Regime to stall while the evacuation continued, but the ruse was short-lived as Ronnie, the Githyanki lieutenant of Dugard, began the assault. These names. Ronnie, the Githyanki. Anyway.
I like it.
It began the assault. All hell broke loose as he easily dispatched 2 of our rangers, Bart the dwarf and Selena the human. Then Dugard himself entered the fray and battled Bob. She caused a storm that took out many of the ground troops but fell, and as her soul left her body and went into Dugard, Regime struck from above. Both flying in the midst of a thunderstorm, Regime fought valiantly, buying enough time for the citizens to make it safely away before he fell to a disintegrate spell. As his soul was taken, his spyglass fell to the muddy jungle floor, where it was found by Yark, the fighter. As the city burned, the surviving party members regrouped in Waterdeep, celebrating a hollow victory and mourning the dead. Yark delivered Regime's spyglass to his son, Kongu, and the story continues. Cool. So, these are some great names.
Right.
Seriously, great names. Bob, Bart,
Dugard, and Bob.
Yes. And then Yark. Yark is a great name too.
Yark.
Yes. So let's raise a glass in memory of Regime Straggler, Bob, Bart Halfstad, and Selena Porain.
Clink.
All right, well, that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, go to interpartyconflict.com. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, where I post weekly discussion questions for you. We're also on Twitter at InPartyConflict. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. We recently started a Patreon, so check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, you want to tell us about FriendQuest?
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games.
Yes. And if you'd like to submit some of your childhood memories of going to the arcade, either write them to us in an email at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com, or if you can preferably record it yourself and send it to me that way, it'll make it just that much more special. Also head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So Jeff, until next time...
Gabe, I'll be right back.
There you go.